and then one, it was someone at the Roosters a while before that.
Hopewadi as well from years ago with the finger up the bum situation, wasn't there? But yeah, it's.
I think once you've gone inside, that's a level more serious.
Yeah, but I think there's a comparison to things like gouging and scratching and biting and that sort of stuff, and we have seen grade E's for those sorts of offences. So where it's deemed like a minor end of that sort of offence, and I think that's probably been looked at like this was maybe not. It was definitely a dodgy offence without a doubt, but how grievous was the extent of it? If we class different levels of things that could end people's career, as one's a grade A dangerous contact and one's a grade C dangerous contact, and it's hard to see why. I think on this probably grade E does seem sensible, and then at the bottom end of that range, given the fact that I can't think of him ever having any bother before. So Rob's asked about it. Let's give it a bit of time of day, I suppose. Why does Baldy Judas get 0 games for a carbon copy of Pete's offence? So that the offence was a similar type of offence in that it was a dangerous lift offence that Luke Gale got banned for, as well as same as Peter Matautia, and it was Gelling as well got one, didn't he, for that? Now, I thought of those three offences, they weren't necessarily the same. Gelling seemed a more deliberate reach in between the legs to do the lift when it completely wasn't necessary at all. Matautia's seemed like the force was maybe a bit stronger because it came from maybe a higher point, and I think there was a greater recklessness to it, whereas this one I think the player was lower to the ground already, so maybe it was a carelessness thing, which is maybe why they're grading of A. But the reason I'm talking about this like maybes and not sures and all that sort of stuff is because a few years ago the disciplinary process used to actually not just show you the minutes of the write-up of the charge sheet, but then go one further and you'd get to see all of the follow-up assessment of it all. But now that they have the streamlined system that they have, because Luke Gale hasn't had any previous charges in the last 12 months, he doesn't have. He can just accept the 0 games. He doesn't even have to reply to that really, and then it expedites the whole process of the disciplinary, which I think a lot of people like. But at the same time, it does make it less easy to compare and understand the differences that the match review panel and then subsequently the disciplinary committee see in these offences, which I suppose does take away a bit of the ability for us to understand, which is why it was great when they did the stuff with the stuff with Rod Studd,
the YouTube stuff, yeah.
But obviously that's not being available at the moment. But hopefully, sometime again soon, that sort of stuff can be answered by that sort of stuff, and people can take the answer on face value rather than try to look for how someone else's bias maybe interjects there when it's mostly our own biases as fans that frame how we see things.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. And at the end of the day, there is a disciplinary process there. The players generally accept it once they've gone through it. There's not many that tend to sort of challenge the bans particularly. And I think actually it's about the right balance at the moment. I think where we were before, it was perhaps there was a spate of too much technicalities, particularly around tackle technique, and it just got really confusing. I think from a fan's point of view, you can understand it when it happens now, and the gradings are fairly consistent on the whole, which means you can roughly rank things in severity.
Yeah, it does seem like there has been a little bit more consistency. Maybe, and definitely more expediency, which the players I do believe and the clubs appreciate. But someone who did appeal the grading or challenge the grading rather than just accept it blindly was Castleford's Grant Millington. He had a 1-match ban overturned for 2 Grade A dangerous contact charges from the meeting with Saints last Sunday. So the prop Millington was cautioned for 1 charge on Theo Farge in the 40th minute, and so that's that. So his Grade A charge was reduced to a caution for the in the end for the Theo Farge incident in the 40th minute of the game, but he accepted the similar charge on Johnny Lomax in the 48th minute, which stayed at grade A, but because that's just one grade A rather than two grade A's, it's one grade A. He hasn't had a previous offence in the last 12 months of similar nature. That means he gets no games banned, so there's no further sanction here on Grant Millington. So I'm sure that he's used the system as they saw fit there and come out with a favourable result for him. I must admit, I don't remember the Theo Farge incident, but certainly the Johnny Lomax one was. I didn't think it was dangerous contact. I thought it was a shoulder charge, but it wasn't contact to the head, so grade A seemed fair. But yeah. Well, it was late as well, weren't it? The one on Johnny Lomax. It was shoulder late, but wasn't.
I didn't catch any of this game because I was off camping in a field in the middle of nowhere in Devon. So I'm completely out of touch with that round.
Fair enough. Let's move on then.
Yeah, so Wakefield Trinity have signed Huddersfield Giants outside back Innes Senior on a 1-month loan deal. The 20-year-old will provide cover for the injured duo Tom Johnston and Lee Kershaw, plus the suspended Reece Lynn.
And they had some cup-tied people, didn't they, Wakefield? So they desperately needed an outside back for last weekend's game, just to get a side on the field, it felt like. St Helens loose forward Morgan Knowles has switched his international allegiance from Wales to England. The 23-year-old was born in Barrow in Furness, Cumbria, but qualified for Wales through his mother and won 4 caps between 2015 and 2017. And Tom Andrews got in touch. He said, "Don't know why anyone could be upset about a lad from Barrow possibly playing for England. See if he gets in the team now, or will Lockers be defrosted for one more World Cup?" I mean, you've got a bit of a foot in both camps when it comes to Wales and England. So any takes of note?
Yeah, I think it's a shame. I think Wales suffer disproportionately on this because it tends to be a lot of people who've got nationality for both. So it tends to be that you often get Super League players, quality players who will be able to qualify for England as well as Wales. And I think there's always going to be that problem. I think and partly for all the Super League clubs being in England, of course, a lot of them will be able to qualify on residency grounds anyway. I kind of don't blame him for doing it. I think he's going to be in a better side. Unfortunately, it does cause problems for Wales potentially because it's there's 2 standard outstanding standard players who are going to be playing for other teams that could have been in the Welsh side. Unfortunately, until this is more, the nationality issue is more solved in a better solution. I don't know what that solution is because I think we've got a fairly good one in place. But until we've got that solution, I think we are kind of stuck with this is the status quo. But again, it is just a shame from the Welsh point of view that we don't have the quality of player and the depth of player that he's not going to be vastly missed.
Yeah, there's the fact that he's English, obviously, as well as Welsh qualified, means that there's no question about his eligibility with the way the rules are, and also, going from a tier 2 nation to a tier 1 nation, it's it's almost like when you have that system in place, which I think we have to make sure the best players play at the best level.
Exactly, yeah.
We kind of have to have that. So it's fair on Morgan Knowles to do this, and absolutely it's the right time for him to do this as well because he will get picked for England in upcoming years. He's the best player of his position in Super League at the moment, in my view. So I think he will be inking him for that World Cup squad, and after that, Saints might be talking about that exposure is that great because it might see him getting an RL deal because it is that level of quality, I think.
Certainly his performances in the last 12 months have shown he is a level above probably where I certainly thought he was.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
Okay, so one non-playing member of the staff at St Helens tested positive for COVID-19 in Super League's latest round of testing. Saints cancelled last Wednesday's planned training session as a result of the tests. The staff members subsequently had a second test which was negative, with the club now awaiting results of a third test before confirming the situation and a return from self-isolation. The Saints players returned to training on Thursday. In total across Super League, there were 563 tests taken with one positive. The 562 negatives included all members of the Salford playing coaching staff for the third time since their last match against Hull FC on August the 9th. All members of the Hull FC playing and coaching staff, other than the 12 who tested positive the previous week, have also tested negative. Castleford, who played St Helens last Sunday, advised earlier this week they've had a full set of negative tests and have also returned to training. So good news all round on that one.
Yeah, that's the good COVID news. The bad COVID news, League Express, they reported at the time of publication on Sunday night that 4 Super League players had received 14-day bans from all rugby league activity after breaching the RFL's COVID-19 protocols. We now know it's 3, so we'll get onto that in a minute. But the RFL has taken action against the players after they were found to have gone against the published guidelines in the operational rules. The players in question will be fined, unable to play, and banned from training with their teammates for a 2-week period from the date of their misdemeanour. Another player is thought to also have been banned but successfully overturned it on appeal, so maybe 2 players have appealed after the news today was confirmed of just the 3 players, which we'll get onto. 2 of the players will have served their bans by the weekend, but the others are likely to be missing the latest round of action. So League Express did in their initial reporting say that they obtained a document sent to players outlining the protocols that they must adhere to outside of their club's designated controlled environment, DCE. And some examples within that were if an individual visits a gym or pool outside of the DCE, if an individual receives massage therapy outside of the DCE. So obviously what they're doing is, these are things where they're going to go out.
High risk areas.
Yeah, they're going to go out and get things done to them that, or do like training and treatment type things that's not going to be covered by people who are also being tested, basically. And then all the other stuff is more around kind of social distancing and stuff. So it's if an individual is not appropriately social distanced from someone outside of their own household, for example, going on a date for an extended length of time or drinks with multiple people, failure to wear masks at appropriate times, which I assume means, on public transport or in shops.
At the shops, yeah.
Or maybe some of the other rules that each individual club and venue and place have put in place as well, because you see all the players coming off the coaches with the masks on and stuff, don't you? Incorrect usage or no use of face masks. Car sharing, except in accordance with the protocols. So I'm guessing players can maybe car share to training together, as long as they wear masks maybe and that sort of stuff. Meeting with people outside of an individual's household in excess of government guidelines. That basically is back to just following government guidelines. Use of items shared with others without appropriate cleaning, sharing food or drink. The clubs where the players were found to be in breach didn't object the RFL stance, and apparently it's set to act as a warning to any other players that breaches will be clamped down on. Now, at the time, Fatboy Rob got in touch. He said, "Why are these players not being named?" As well as the FC players that have tested positive, there's notable lack of leadership and transparency from both the RFL and Super League. It's poor even by Rugby League standards. But I possibly think some jumping the gun had happened there with that reporting, because the players were named on Monday morning by the RFL. So I'm not sure about the kind of timeline of this, whether the RFL said that they definitely wouldn't be giving people's names out and then have changed their position or otherwise, but that transparency certainly around the people who've breached the rules has been given. Players testing positive, I'm not sure that's as clear cut, because there was a couple of cases in American football where it was false positives, which this Saints non-playing staff member maybe could have been a false positive.
They've had it in the tennis this week as well, yeah.
Yeah, and basically this player who had a false positive, it was reported that he'd had a positive test, and then it was reported the next day that he'd had a second test and it was negative, but his wife kind of said, she tried to take the kids to school and people were like, "Why are you doing this? You're putting everyone else at risk." She tried to go to the supermarket, and people were looking at her like it was like breaking the law or doing something wrong, when because the headline report had been ex-player tests positive for COVID-19. Within the couple of days between the first test and the going to the shop, it had been cleared up that it tested negative again then twice or